This is listener-supported community radio KAAD-LP 103.5 on your FM dial, Sonora, California, and streaming on www.kaad-lp.org. I'm Wendy Ledger with the Golden Nuggets of the Motherlode, brought to you by the Sonora Writers Group and Tuolumne County Arts. Today we have Glenn Ditman on our show. Glenn was born in Santa Clara, California in 1968, but considers Half Moon Bay to be his hometown. After the death of his father, Glenn and his mother moved to Modesto in 1988, where Glenn lived for 26 years. A few years after his mother's death in 2011, Glenn moved to Sonora, California to be closer to his relatives. Glenn has a bachelor's degree in social science from Stanislaus State University in Turlock, along with a multiple subject teaching credential. Glenn currently works as a full-time substitute teacher at Columbia Elementary School in Columbia, California. His published works include Riverbank, which is a brief history of Riverbank, California, published through Arcadia Press, and Glenn Allen's anthology, which is published by CreateSpace. Both books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or locally at Mountain Bookstore, Columbia Booksellers, and Sierra Sellers. Glenn has recently finished 2 new books of fiction, which will hopefully be published this next year. The larger work is based on the life of his aunt, Ellen Miller, and follows her adventures from 1928 to 1945. A second, smaller work, entitled Catnipsel, is a children's story based on the fairy tale Rapunzel, but its characters are felines. All right. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you, Wendy.
It's so good to see you again.
It is so good to see you too. Just wish we could do it in person.
I know. So Glenn and I met through the Sonora Writers Group, and as a result of COVID, the Writers Group hasn't been able to meet. So what has this year been like for you as a writer, Glenn? How has your routines changed, or have things changed?
It's been really strange because early on it seemed like my muse struck, and I've actually got like 4 or 5 more children's stories to share with the group. But then now that I'm working, it's kind of like she's left for a little while. I'm trying to entice her back, but she's just not hearing me, I guess. I don't know. It's been weird.
Yeah. So, tell me a little more about these new children's stories.
Okay, I have one that I'm calling Spoiled Rotten Reggie, and it is about a little boy who's absolutely spoiled rotten. And because of that fact, he develops a particular odor about him. And his parents go about trying to get rid of this odor, and finally they realize, oh, okay, we spoiled him this way. We have to admit that fact. So what do we do? So he gradually changes and becomes a whole new person. And at the end of it, one of the girls in the class begins to also develop this odor. So it's kind of a cute little tale, kind of making fun of, parents spoiling their children, I guess. So, yeah.
Yes. So are these stories ones that you share with your students in your classrooms?
I have not had the opportunity to do that yet. I would love to do that. I'm thinking about possibly doing that when I go back to school in January, asking the principal, hey, could I possibly do this? So yeah, it's something that's kind of on the back burner.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Do you want to tell us anything about the other stories that you've written this year?
Well, let me think. One of them also involves felines, and I can't think of the fairy tale that it kind of does a pun on. It involves a prince whose brothers go out to find wives, but they forget to find one for him because he's sort of the little brother and a little bit foolish, more foolish than the other brothers. So they go out and they find their wives, and as they're journeying back, they encounter a giant who turns them to stone. and so the
Ah,
parents are grieving, like, what happened to our kids? So this character goes out into the wild, wide world to find out what happened to them. And I turned the dog into a gigantic, I think it was a mastiff that I used in the story. So he goes out and he has to fool the giant and figure out where the heart is. So then at the end of it, he squeezes the heart, the giant dies, his brothers come back, they journey back home to their kingdom, and he is awarded the kingdom or something like that. So yeah.
that sounds good. That sounds good. Yeah. So, how about reading this year? Have you read anything that you've really loved?
You mean as far as other people's novels or
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm reading a very interesting one right now that is called The Death of Mrs Westaway. And in it, have you read that one?
I love that book.
Yeah, oh my gosh, isn't it good? I'm a little over halfway through, so don't give it away to me. I
I
just
won't.
read the part where Hal confessed to her relatives the truth.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just at that point. And
Uh-huh.
I'm at that point where maybe I shouldn't give it away. Your readers are listening. They're like, oh, you're giving it away. I'm at the point where she tripped over the string on the stairs, where someone evidently tried to kill her.
Oh
So
yeah. It's
right
a
at that.
it's a great thriller based on, well, kind of inspired by Rebecca a little bit.
Oh, I don't know if
Uh
I read that one.
yeah, and I love to listen to books. I don't read, I listen.
Uh,
And that writer, Ruth Ware, she has one narrator, Isabel Church, Imogen Church, I think her name is. And she does all her books and she does all these great accents and stuff. So
oh,
she does all these different, like the Brighton accent at the beginning and all those different
oh
things. It's really fun.
wow.
If you ever want to, yeah, if you
Oh,
ever
it'd be
want
great
to
to hear it that
listen
way.
to that, it's really
Yeah.
fun to listen to it that way too. But I love that book. She's written maybe, I don't know if you've read others of her books, but
No, this is
she's
the first.
really, because that was
This
my
is the first
favorite.
one I've
She's
read
written
of hers.
about, I think she's written maybe 8 books, but that was The Death of Mrs Westaway was my favorite. So good.
And yeah, I've been reading other books too, a little Stephen King here and there, and other historical fiction books. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So I wanted to congratulate you on finishing 2 books this year. That's just wonderful. So, and one of them is a novel, right? A novel based on your aunt's life.
Yes, yes, correct.
So there's, so many people who've always wanted to write a novel but feel kind of daunted about the idea of actually doing that. So, as someone who has successfully done that, can you tell people some tips about how you did it or some things that helped you along the way or how the process went for you?
I think the greatest help in it was probably the writers group. Anyone who is thinking of doing a novel, I would very much encourage to join a writers group because there's so much good advice that comes. And as I've said before, the first time you go, you're going to be scared. Okay, what are these people going to think about what I'm doing? But you get so much good advice back. Oh, you need to fix this sentence. Well, wait a moment. This part doesn't make sense. Your character's, fuzzy or whatever it might be. And so you collect that and kind of take what you want of it. Like, well, okay, maybe I want to keep my character that way, but yeah, I agree. My sentence structure looks bad. So, and then you get the advice of how do I fix this? And they readily give it. um, I would say too, particularly in the case where, since I wrote about my aunt, having a recorder, letting the person talk, having questions prepared, things like that really, really help with getting this done.
Right. So did you talk to some friends of your aunts or family members or who did you talk to?
Primarily, I spoke with my aunt. Um,
Oh,
yeah, and just recorded her and let her tell her tale. Um, it became kind of difficult after she passed away because I couldn't consult with her. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. How do I do this? So I kind of had to think, okay, I know her back here. I know what she did here. So what would she logically do in this situation where I can't ask her about? So that was kind of difficult. There was part of the book that really got stuck, which occurred during World War II. So I
Uh-huh.
just had to do my research and try and figure out how would she react to this, or how would I react to it, and try and incorporate it into the story the best that I could.
Yeah, that's really great because I mean, this is a little bit tangential, but my husband and I were talking about Shakespeare this morning, and we were talking about Shakespeare's tragedies. We'd seen a TV show last night where there was Hamlet. They were performing Hamlet in it. And I was saying that in his plays, everything is based on their character, like Hamlet's indecisiveness. Because he's indecisive, this is how he reacts in different situations. So you can understand everything he does because you know how he reacts. And that's what you're talking about here with your aunt, because you know your aunt, then you know her character. And so you can imagine how she would be in a situation. And that kind of captures the reader's attention and gets them involved in the story.
Yes, that's very true. And in a lot of it, I had to think about how my relatives would act. And in some parts of it, I would write it out and just think, I could so see them doing this, so see them reacting this way. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Did your aunt die unexpectedly or?
Not exactly. We were kind of expecting it. She had a heart condition going on, and she was 96 years old when she passed away. So it wasn't really that surprising. At the same time, it was sad because she had started to rewrite her autobiography and didn't quite finish it. So that's what, like I said, that's kind of what the frustrating part was, is I didn't have her to talk to about the rest of the story, how to finish it. So yeah, but somehow I did it.
Yeah. And did you feel like for me, like this is a little different, but when my cat died, I wrote these talking cat fantasies with her in it because I knew that I was going to miss her so much. And it was a way for me to continue to have her in my life and to honor her. Did you feel that way with your aunt?
In some ways, yes. It's kind of funny because when you write about them, you kind of feel like they're there and they're kind
Yes.
of advising you, telling you what to do. So yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So have other family members read your book yet, or is that after publication they'll be able to read it?
Um, Annie Ellen did read it herself and she liked what I was doing.
Yeah.
Um, I do have a cousin who's a little bit upset over some things that I wrote that she's kind of feels personal. What I'm going to do is speak with a second cousin and let her read it and see what she thinks of it, and then kind of explain some things to her. I don't really know how it's going to go over with my family
Yeah.
because it presents my grandmother in an unfavorable light, for one.
Okay. Yeah.
It tells some personal things about my aunt and some of the rest of the family. So all I can do is put it to this one member, see what she thinks, and if I get a go, then it's like, okay, good. If not, then I may have to go back and explain why I did what I did. That's all I.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's like a kind of like a tricky part about being a writer. Yeah. You want to tell your story, and other people might go like, "This is my story too," but I'm telling it from my point of view. This is, I'm telling my story. You can tell your story. It just gets tricky sometimes, I think.
It does, because how people come back and you'd say, "Oh, she never would have done that." Like, well, okay, I kind of felt like maybe she would act that way. Um, I think one of the other fears that I get, and I discussed it with Sydney Matheson Avey, is being
Uh-huh.
historically inaccurate. Um,
Right.
like I remember going into a meeting at one time, and toward the end of the book, my aunt is at Fort Ord over in Monterey County.
Yes.
They called it Fort Ord Military Base. And one of our members who had been in the military. It was like they never would have called it Fort Ord military base. They simply call it Fort Ord. So I'm glad I got caught on that.
Oh, that is good. Yeah.
Back at me and say, "Oh no, it's this." So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really good. And Cat Nipsel. I remember hearing you read excerpts from it, but now it's done.
Yes, yes. My illustrator sent me
Yes.
pictures, and I have been dying to share them with the group because they look so wonderful. Just there's so much coloration and so much imagination in them. There's little details in there which play little tricks on, cats, feline. For instance, like a little satchel bag on a horse that the prince in the story is riding, and it has this royal symbol that's the design of a cat face. It is so cute. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I know your illustrator, Sierra.
I'm sorry, say the name again.
Is her name Sierra?
Oh, no, it's Sequoia.
Sequoia.
Yeah,
Oh
I have to think
gosh.
myself for a
Having
moment.
a
I haven't
senior
looked
moment.
at her for a
Yeah,
while.
she is incredibly talented. I
Oh, she
remember seeing
certainly
her
is.
at the writing readers readings that we used to have, and she's incredibly talented, both as an artist and as a writer.
Yes, yes. Yeah, she goes to Chico State now.
Yeah. So, would you, Glenn, at this point, like to read something?
Yes. I had to think about it a little bit. I have something which occurs in the book in December of 1934.
Okay.
It's Christmas time, and it was a rough Christmas because the Depression was going on. And there's also a sad note in it of some kind of tragic things that happened in the past. So I'll go ahead and read, I guess.
Yes, please.
Okay, this is chapter 29 of the book. Um, Toward the end of December of 1934, mother and grandmother went into the J.C. Penney store. The proprietors had decided to do its customers a favor during the difficult times the nation faced. When any material the business was using came down to having a yard left, the fabric was wrapped up, labeled, tagged with the price, and tossed into a bin. Around Christmas, all of the old fabric would be taken out of the bin, placed on a table, and sold. 5 cents a yard was charged for cotton, while ran went for 10 cents a yard, and wool went for 15. If one was smart enough, one could find enough material for a whole garment. Material could be anywhere from a quarter of a yard to a yard and a half. Surprisingly, no one fought over the cloth, and if someone had a little left, there was always some use they could manage to make of it, or someone they could think of to give it to so it would not go to waste. People shared and bartered things in order to make ends meet and help those in need. Christmas time was done differently around the Harris's home. Grandma and Grandpa's background regarding the matter leaned more towards an English style of doing things. So instead of getting a tree early, the family waited until Christmas Eve to buy one. It was actually better to buy this way, Ellen thought, as the sellers at the lots were anxious to make a sale and thus lowered their prices. However, this particular year, there were a lot of people at the lot. With the hard times, it seemed like everyone was doing the same thing and trying to save money. Even so, with a little finagling, Grandpa was able to get a nice little tree to put up in the living room on the first floor. As the rest of the family decorated the tree with popcorn and paper, Grandma played carols on the old organ, Silent Night, Away in a Major, and some older, more unfamiliar English tunes Ellen did not as readily recognize. As far as presents were concerned, these were purchased after Christmas. This too seemed to Ellen like a good idea, as everything would be on sale for the end of the year. When New Year's Day came, the presents were a meager affair, with Ellen receiving a flour sack dress and Junior a shirt made from some of the material obtained at J.C. Penney. The babies also received some new clothes grandmother had woven out of material from the store. In the evening, Ellen's aunts and uncles on her mother's side of the family came to attend a potluck dinner and something of a family reunion. Grandmother made a small ham, and the rest of the family made the trimmings and other dishes. Sawhorses were set up in the room on the second floor. Planks were laid over them and tablecloths cast over them. These makeshift tables were then burdened with containers and platters of food until they strained and groaned with the weight. A smaller table was set up for the littler children. The cooking tasted great, and visiting with relatives was fun until the eating was over. Off to one side of the large room were a sink and a stove. Dinner was pleasant for a while until Ellen was told to clean up. On normal evenings, Ellen would have to wash up to 9 dishes: her grandparents, Uncle Clarence's, her parents, herself, and her 3 brothers. During a family reunion such as this one, the number of dishes that heaped up rose to a whopping 16, and that did not include the pots, pans, serving dishes, and silverware. Ellen's mother, Gloria, who was born in 1902, was the oldest of 6 children. Gloria's sister Dorothy had arrived in 1906. Her first brother Lee came 2 years later in 1908. A second brother, Merle, had followed 2 years after that and was born in 1910. Daisy, the younger sister, had entered the scene in 1913, and the youngest brother, Clarence, had been born in Angels Camp in 1918. Both of Gloria's sisters, Ellen's aunts, were married now. Daisy had married back in 1933, and of course Dorothy had married in May. After finishing the dishes, Ellen went downstairs to admire the tree. The family had gone into the kitchen for coffee and chat. She noticed some pictures that Grandma had put out on top of the old organ. Most she recognized, but 2 she had never really noticed before. One was of a little boy, perhaps around 5 years old. He had short brown hair and brown eyes and wore a striped shirt. On his head he wore a dark cap. The other picture was of a baby, a little under a year old. He was dressed all in white. Aunt Dorothy came to the room to grab something, so Ellen asked her, "Who are the 2 little boys in these pictures? Are those Uncles Lee and Merle? I don't think one of them is Clarence. The clothing looks older than that." "No, Ellen, you wouldn't know them, and be careful bringing up around your grandmother. It may bring back difficult memories." "Why is that?" asked Ellen. "Those 2 boys are Oscar and George. Oscar was born in 1896 and George in 1900. If they had lived, you would have had 2 more uncles and your mother 2 brothers to boss her around instead of her bossing the rest of us." "How did they die?" asked Ellen. "There was a bad scarlet fever epidemic when your grandparents lived in Montana. Oscar was 5 years old and George only one. Mother and father, your grandparents, were heartbroken." "How awful. No wonder Grandma doesn't want to talk about it." "They spoiled your mother rotten after they had her. Afraid of losing her too, I guess. But it was awful on the rest of us. They gave her everything she ever wanted since she became like their new firstborn. She lorded it over the rest of us, too." "Sounds like you didn't get along that well, Aunt Dorothy." "We had our moments. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here now together for Christmas. But there were a lot of fights, too, as there are in any family. Remember that when your 3 younger brothers are driving you crazy." "I'll try to," declared Ellen. She was thankful as she went to bed that night, thankful that her family was saved, thankful that she had at least gotten something. Some children got nothing at all at Christmas season and had no home but an old car, barely a shirt on their back, and with no idea where they would settle and call home. Ellen was grateful that she had a home, even if it was on occasion crowded.
Oh, that's wonderful, Glenn. You give such a clear sense of what it would be like to live during that time, all those details and it felt like very thoughtful rendition of family history.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is super wonderful. So, do you want to talk a little bit about what you love about living in this area and about being a teacher?
Wow. I think what I really like about this area is the level of support that I have gotten, whether it be from church or from the writers group or from my new workplace. Everyone is just so willing to help me out and give me advice, check up on me and see what I'm doing. I mean, even in this last week, my former Bible study leaders came by and dropped off a present for me. I had a friend that lives some blocks away drop up another present, you know. Um, I love this area so much just because of the people that are up here. They're wonderful. I mean, on another occasion, I remember my car was having problems with its starter, and I was told to go driving up toward Twainhart, and I it stalled by Mono Way and the highway, and I didn't know what to do. It was on the side of the road. I cannot tell you how many people stopped to make sure that I was okay, that I was safe. Just, people driving on the road that I didn't even know. I mean, that's the kind of community that this is. People care about each other. You don't find that down in the valley or in the Bay Area, in the big cities at all.
Yes. So tell us a teeny bit about being a teacher, what you love about it, what you're doing right now, and
Oh my goodness, I'm having so much fun. I'm so thrilled because it's just, I've got this new job. Right now, what I have been doing is well, okay, I should tell you, they hired me as a full-time substitute teacher. I know that probably sounds weird, but what happened was because of the fact that I was on Social Security, I was only able to work 2 days a week, and they wanted me there more than that because I'm, not to brag, but they tell me I'm one of their best subs. So they wanted to hire me for a full-time position, and I didn't get that position. I'm happy for that anyways because it was an upper middle school grade. But the secretary went to the principal and was like, "We need him here all the time. We and it's unfair because he can only work 2 days a week, and we need him to do stuff." You know, she kind of went to the principal and told her, "Look, this isn't working out. We got to have him here full time." And so the principal agreed with her on that. So they created this position of a full-time substitute teacher and told me, "Okay, we got a position for you. Come fill it," basically. What I have been doing recently at the school is I have been monitoring their Wi-Fi hotspot. So, due to the fact that the school is for the most part closed down, the students requested to have a spot where students that did not have Wi-Fi could come in and do their work. It's been interesting because on some days I have no students. Other days I've got up to like 6 or something like that. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been fun being considered now a part of the staff, getting Christmas gifts and things like that, and encountering people, and just I can't tell you how great this is. It's fantastic.
well, that's just wonderful, Glenn, and it's a testament to you. It's very well deserved, and everyone at the writing group would let everyone know what a special person you are. So I can really understand that why that happened. Thank you so much, Glenn, for being here today.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to our sponsors, the Sonora Writers Group and Tuolumne County Arts, and to the kind folks at KAAD-LP 103.5 FM, streaming at kaad-lp.org. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.